Today we're sitting down with my good friend who's a college champion, Super Bowl winning running back, Jamal Lewis. Today we talk about how Jamal, while he was still playing, started his own businesses to build his entrepreneurial skills for his post-sports career. Today, Jamal has multiple companies that he runs, and he talks with us about all the learnings he had from the game of football and how he relates it to entrepreneurism. We hope you enjoy this conversation with Jamal Lewis. Jamal, welcome to the Entrepreneurs United podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Excited to have you on. We've had a Stanley Cup champion on before, one of my childhood idols, Montreal Canadian Ryan Walter. And now we get a Super Bowl champ and Jamal Lewis on our episode. So excited to talk to you a little bit about your background in the sport of football. But more importantly, you've gone on to have a really good business career beyond that as an entrepreneur. And I know you're very passionate about sports and business yourself. And I've gotten a chance to know you for about a decade now. And it's been fun to see you grow your businesses and do what you do. So can't wait to dive into that a little bit as well. So can't wait to jump in.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on, and really looking forward to chatting it up with you guys.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So Jamal, let's kind of walk back for those in the audience who may not know a lot about your background. I know you played at Tennessee football. I think you played with Peyton Manning, as a matter of fact. So people, may remember those years. Went on to Baltimore Ravens, won a Super Bowl as a rookie. First round draft pick, over 10,000 yards in football. This is not about football, but a lot about business is achieving goals and getting to a certain destination. And I have to believe that in your football career, a lot of hard work, a lot of effort. Where did that come from? Where did all of that, energy and all you have to do in a sport to really get to the highest level? Where did that come from? Can you give us a little bit of that background of yours?
Well, basically starting out in high school, you're challenged, right? You have coaches that challenge you. So I think I owe a lot of it to a lot of the coaches that brought me up from Pop Warner. I've been blessed to have great coaches that's been able to instill some good work ethic in me and also believe in me as well. So with that, moving on to high school or whatever, it's always another level, right? So it's like playing a video game. You're always trying to get to that next level. And when you get to high school, it's like, hey, kids are bigger than you. They're much more advanced than you are or whatever at the sport. But, how do you keep an edge? How do you, go out and prove yourself and excel and just gradually grow throughout the process? And I think, growth is everything, especially within the sport and also in business. It's what are you doing to increase your value? What are you doing to make yourself a better person, on the field, off the field, and in business, the same thing. Every year going back to evaluate, where were my weaknesses at? How can I get better? And that's the only way that you're going to excel is by, working on those weaknesses and also just self-evaluation and evaluating yourself along the process, and I think that, sports kind of really instilled a lot of that in me for my business career, because I pretty much drive it the same way that I would, as an athlete. And that was, working hard in the off season, dedicating myself to my craft and what I need to do to get better. And also just sacrificing the things that I wanted, that I wanted, but at the same time, just letting those things go so I can accomplish, my goals and my dreams and everything I set forth. And you talked about goals. You can set goals, but what's the path, to reaching that goal? That is the ultimate quest, in trying to attain that goal and trying to stay on the right path, stay on the right track, not get veered off. And being an athlete and being a pro athlete, I commend a lot of pro athletes just because of that, because there's so many times that you could have, went off track, but obviously you hung in there and you stayed in there and you stuck to the process and that's what got you where you are. So whether that's sports or business, it's the same way.
Yeah, that's awesome. And certainly to your point, even in business, right? Way too many times we get sidetracked. We, you know, instead of focusing on what we can do and do it the best we can, we kind of get sidetracked and everything else. I don't want to make this assumption, Jamal, but I need to ask the question. I'm sure you've had tons of highlights in the football career that would be like, that was one of my biggest highlights that I remember, not just a play, but just a moment that you had in the game. And I don't want to make an assumption it was winning a Super Bowl. However, I'm sure that was very, very high up on the list, if not the top. But what would be your
Yeah.
biggest moment or highlight that you could share with us in your professional career?
I think that in my professional football
Sports.
career,
Yeah.
I think it would probably football is kind of like, I mean, sports Super Bowl is that it's a gimme, right? So we're going to just chalk that one off.
Okay. Perfect.
I will say mainly the 2,000 yard season, running for 2066 and 2003. That was probably the most rewarding, just because of how it all came to be. That off season, me and me and my trainer, Tony Villani, it was more of, we set out to reach 2,000 yards,
Oh
and
wow.
really it was more to break the it was 2,000 yards. We trained for that, and we dedicated ourselves to that, and it was just like it was words at first that became reality, um and just buying into the process with my trainer, buying into the process with the team and everything that we had going on that year, because we did have a quarterback to get hurt and go down, so I had to answer the bell and kind of be the engine, for that offense, and being able to answer the bell,
Yeah.
and end up, taking 25, 30 yards a game. I mean, 30 carries a game, and racking it up, for 2,000 yards and having that 295 game that really set it out. Because that's what we really wanted to do. My trainer and I was, let's get these big runs. If you hit one or two big runs early in the game, it sets you up for that 150-yard day. So that's what we wanted to do, and it was, hey, let's get that breakaway speed. Let's be able to get past the second level, and let's finish, and let's get that done early. And that's how those numbers kind of add up.
Yeah, that's amazing. And if I'm not mistaken, um, is it that did that I can't remember exactly where you ended up. You just mentioned it a second ago, but was that like third all time rushing in a season yards? Is that what I saw?
Yes, it's third. It's third now, because Adrian Peterson, he one up me,
So
and
at the
Eric
time, that was a
Dickerson.
record.
Yeah. At the time, I was number two. At the
Okay.
time, I was number
Awesome.
two under Eric Dickerson, and then Adrian Peterson went and kind of surpassed a little bit.
Awesome. What I love, I appreciate you sharing that story. What's great about that, to your point earlier about what's your path to attain goals, it's not as if you just did it and you were determined to have a good season. You actually set out before you started to get to 2,000 yards. We're mathematically breaking it down on how you're going to get there, and what work you
Yeah.
need to put in there to get it. So I love that, Jamal. Obviously,
Yeah.
I've gotten to know you post football as an entrepreneur and a businessman. Um, were you entrepreneurial before your football career ended? Like, was there stuff you did earlier in your whether it be college or high school years, or even your pro years, which kind of gave you that entrepreneurial bug?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I actually, at 21 years old, I actually built my first subdivision. It was about a 14 home subdivision. So I dabbled in the real estate thing a little bit. Thought I wanted to do that, but that was kind of a one time thing. But I did that pretty much 100% on my own on the south side of Atlanta, which is a nice subdivision right now. It was a great accomplishment. Then I also opened up a Moe's Southwest Grill, which was a franchise at the time. So I did that, and then after that, I started this trucking company that was probably one of my biggest feats. Was running about 250 trucks, all refrigerated. Went through the whole 2007, 2008. the economy bust and everything. So kind of weathered that storm until about 2011. And then, that's after I retired. So I've always pretty much been an entrepreneur and just always had a thing for starting up a business and just making it grow. Making it grow, making it flourish. Can't say I've won in all of them, but at the same time, I think what I did win was the relationships and the resources that I gained. Pretty much along the way that pretty much put me here where I am.
Mm. I want to take a quick step back to the 2,000-yard season. And you had said you and your trainer had worked towards the understanding that 150 yards and a few breakaway carries early in the game, that would set up a game for success. And it occurred to me, I'm curious as to your take on the balance between individual goals and team goals, because I'm sure you've played with people, or you may have been on the wrong side of it yourself at times, but I'm sure you've played with people that were too much about, hey, I need my 150 yards,
Mhm.
and not enough about the team. And then you
Yeah.
probably played with people who were too much about the team and not enough about personal responsibility to success. Where is that balance? And do you have any stories for yourself on maybe where you were on the wrong side of it and it taught you where that balance point is?
Yes. On both of those. So, yeah, you're exactly right. You do have to kind of balance, between those individual goals and the team goals. Pretty much the coach at the beginning of the year going to set out those team goals and what we really want to accomplish. And you know what the ultimate goal is, the Super Bowl, but everybody isn't capable of that. So, a lot of people want to get to the playoffs or, just win the division or whatever that might be. But those are team goals, and team goals are all about you not being selfish. So that's what I learned from being on a Super Bowl team and also being on a national championship team was there was a lot of people they were not unselfish, where they were unselfish. They didn't worry about those extra carries or the extra tackles or sacks or whatever, where they get themselves out of place or they go and do something different that's out of the play in order to accomplish what they want to have. Those are the teams that you have that are not Super Bowl teams. They don't go that far or whatever because you have a lot of guys out there that are trying to get their incentives and it's all about them. And those are the teams that you don't see that go later on into the postseason. Myself, I think being on the other side of that, I can remember 2005. I think I was wanting a new contract. I was very upset, because I didn't get my new contract at the time, and the Ravens were going back and forth or whatever. And I kind of set the team aside, for my own personal gain, and that was for me to get my contract. That's what I wanted. So, long story short, I ended up getting hurt that year. I wasn't out for the season, but it stagged me because I went into the game against the Dallas Cowboys. I can remember it like yesterday. Went into that game, and even before the game, I'm thinking about my contract. I don't really want to be out here, this, that, and the other, whatever. And what happened? Running through on a regular play, nice game, going to the ground, and I think it was DeMarcus Ware just came down on my ankle, high ankle sprain, tore a ligament in my ankle and everything, and it just sat me back. So it was just one of those things where it's like, hey, you have to be fully focused. You can't put yourself and your individual needs and wants or whatever before the team. And I felt if I would have went into that game with a different mindset, I probably wouldn't have gotten injured. I would have had a better season, and I might have gotten that contract, at the end of that season. But I was young. I was probably 25, 26 years old or whatever. So, but that's why I tell guys nowadays that are in those contract situations, just play ball because it doesn't last long. Be happy to be out there and just go out there and just give it your all, and you never know where the chips may fall.
In your experience as an entrepreneur, have you seen anything similar with people who work for the companies that you own or are partial owner in, where people want a new contract for themselves? They want a raise, they want that promotion. They start to get disfocused because they're so focused on that. And then they end up not accomplishing the results that they could have had they not been so worried about themselves. Have you experienced anything similar to that as an entrepreneur?
Yes, yes. Earlier on, I did. As an entrepreneur, earlier on, I probably 5, 6 years ago. In companies I've had, you do have that where somebody wants more money, or they're only going to do what's asked. It's not over and beyond, and I'm doing it for the company, or I'm doing it for myself. Uh, I have dealt with that, but what I've learned outside of that was, pay people what they're worth. Get that out of the way, that way what's expected. So if, hey, look, if I'm taking care of you and on the front end, there's expectations. So, I shouldn't have to have to tell you what to do all the time. You should have your own expectations and drive and want to do better. And it's about the company. Because this is what this is a team, and we have a goal that we're trying to accomplish. And my whole thing is, I just need you to buy into the process that we've set forth and do your part. So you do have a lot of that where other people want to do other people's job. Don't worry about other people's job. Worry about your job. And as far as like you said, the money always plays a part, and somebody always feels like they want more, or they should be getting more, or they look at another employee and what they're getting. And my whole thing is I like to flush that out from the start, and get that out of the way, to the point where we don't have to really discuss that. We shouldn't. I don't want my employees worrying about getting paid or money. I want them to worry about the task at hand, and hey, being happy within a company that's growing. And when we grow, you're going to grow. So that's just how I operate. But you still have those same type of tendencies out of people within the workplace. But I think that comes from the top, and you have to really manage that and really manage the expectations, of anybody that you hire and anybody that you bring in.
Mm. I'd like to hear about the characteristics of an A player in football. And I'll tell you where I'm going with this. Keep your mind there. Then I'm going to repeat it back to you. And I want to know if those are the same characteristics of good entrepreneurs. So don't try to juxtapose the two. I'm just telling you where I'm going to lead you. So when you think about football and you're like, hey, here are some A players who I worked with, what are their characteristics?
Their characteristics are, um, you may name a few. I can name a few.
Yeah, please.
Okay. All right. Well, just characteristics of an A player is, always on time, always taking notes and listening, versus voicing what their opinion is, but listening. Um, I would also say, errors. Errors. A players don't have a lot of mental errors. So in a game, they're not going to miss that block. They're not going to miss that tackle. They're not going to miss that read or whatever. Those are A players. They're going to have minimal mistakes. A players are going to, when you correct them, they're going to get it. You're going to get it corrected, and they're going to get it corrected the first time, and you're not going to have to tell them again and again and again. And A player, you don't have to really worry about them off the field in jeopardizing your team and, jeopardizing the focus of where you're really trying to go.
That's to feed this back to you. So now switching caps out of football, think about entrepreneurs and what you know about entrepreneurs and yourself even. Would you say an A player is an entrepreneur? They're always on time. They're always taking notes. They're always listening. They have a minimal number of mental errors. They're coachable. You don't have to tell them twice. They want to go improve. And they're appropriate out of the office.
Yeah, I think those are all characteristics of entrepreneurs.
What is missing from that list for entrepreneurs that may just not be even appropriate on the football field?
Chances. You're going to take chances. An entrepreneur has to take chances. You gotta, I think it was coach at the coach of the Ravens. I just went blank. He said that everybody has an opinion, but everybody doesn't have to make a decision. So as a player, you can go out as an A player. You just have to go out there and you don't have to think. You just have to do, right? As an entrepreneur, you have to think and do, and you also have to make a decision and live with it. A lot of players you don't have to, but I can tell you one thing: A player is one thing, but a great player is different. Great players will make a decision. Great players will, I say, great player like a Deion Sanders. He's going to take a chance on jumping that route and get that interception. Right? Myself as a great player, I consider myself a great player. I'm going to take my chance and bounce that run outside because I saw something and I'm gonna hit a home run. And I'm not afraid to bounce it out there and not hit a home run, right? So that's the difference, I think, in A players and what's missing from being an entrepreneur.
Cool. So take chances, but not just take chances. Take chances and be decisive about it.
Right. There you go. That's it.
I love that. And Jamal, I just want to come back to this. I mean, while you were in college and or playing professionally, you started these businesses. You built a subdivision. You had a Moe's Southwest Grill franchise. You had, your truck business. Why did you do that?
Really, because I was trying to curve the. I guess the view. I'm looking for the word, but the view
Stereotype.
The stereotype of an athlete and the fact that, hey, look, I need to get ahead of this thing because, yeah, you can make millions of dollars, but the percentages and the numbers show. So I wanted to try to get ahead of that, and that's why I kind of started businesses, hoping that I would have some home run businesses or whatever, which I did have some good ones, but at the same time, nothing that was basically scalable that I could just take to the next level. But yeah, that's why I started so early.
Gotcha. And so let's bring us to the current day today. What do you have going on entrepreneurially today?
So now I have about 2 businesses. Now I went through a full transition, coming out of NFL, concussions, and that's how I ended my career. The trucking company, lost the trucking company, put bankrupt that just due to the situation and what was going on. And, that's another topic if we want to get into that. But now, pushing forward, I have two companies now. One is a exhibit company, a trade show exhibit company. We do trade show exhibits for multiple companies around the country that are going into trade shows or any kind of events. So that's national, called Southeast Exhibits and Events. And then we also have a company called Buyer Connected Incorporated, where we do furnitures, fixtures, equipment installations for anybody from retail to restaurants to hospitality as well. So pretty much sending crews in and either breaking down, setting up, installing, whatever the plan or whatever it is for that particular retailer or customer.
Okay, awesome. So I have to go here because you talked about the trucking company and kind of you had to stop playing football. You had your trucking company at the time that this happened as well.
Mhm.
What happened exactly in that particular situation? What was the lesson there?
I think the lesson there was, I was still playing football, 100% owner, of this company or whatever. But at the same time, wasn't very hands-on. Trusted partners to go in and do what they were expected to do. Did have the economy that kind of played a part. But when I did finish up, just kind of figuring out that they weren't running the company as they should have, stealing from the company and, just really driving the business into the ground. So what I just learned from that is, as an entrepreneur, as the owner, you have to be there. You have to be there to watch, what's going on and what's happening and have meetings, have weekly meetings if you're not present, so you understand what's going on and everything. And just don't think that, hey, just because money is there or you have money to put in or invest or fix a problem doesn't make it all right, So that's it. Pretty keep good people around you and keep good people within your organization and just like my one of the consultants I brought in said, kick the muddy fish out, and that's how you keep clean water, right?
Hmm. That's a good quote. I'm curious. You said you had stopped as a result of concussions, and I think you stopped playing. Was it 2009?
Yeah, 2009-10 season, yes.
Okay, and it was 2015 that the movie Concussion came out, where
Mhm.
it just started to become something. CTE became something, and that was kind of the big breakout of acceptance that that was a thing. I'm curious, when you were playing, was CTE anything that was talked about at that time, or was there any fear about too
No,
many concussions, or is it just not even a thing?
no, it wasn't a thing at all. I think the year that I actually retired is the year that I learned the most about concussions. Just what they were, what to expect, what are the symptoms, and it just so happened after I got knocked out of a game, was unconscious, came back into that game, which will never happen again, and it shouldn't have happened then. But it's we never even knew about CTE. You never even knew about what the long term effects of concussions really were. But we learned pretty quickly. And I think I got knocked out the first game. Um, Played out through the rest of the season until about week 10. And one day I just woke up and I just wasn't myself. I wasn't the same. I still played that game, but after that game, I never played another game again
Mm,
because they put me on IR. Basically, just more thinking about my future versus that next week, and me playing. So that's when I pretty much, was forced to kind of retire and give it up and hang up my cleats. But it was one of them things where I learned a lot about cognitive ability and just your memory and just brain function and everything else. which you never knew before. Concussions, it was more of a bell rung or you got dinged or something like that when we were playing. And, you take some smelling sauce and look, you get back out there, you're ready to go, and it made you feel a little macho at the time. But not knowing that you're just damaging your brain cells for the future. But now I can say that it is a lot better. I think football is safer than it's ever been, and they've really made some steps to really drive from youth up. So over the last 10 years, I think it's been a big help, and just glad to see that because this is a game that I love. This is a game that I grew up playing, and I would never want to see it tarnished by injuries and death.
And it's certainly a game that has a lot of crossover to business and being an entrepreneur. If you're open to sharing, do you experience any long-term symptoms of multiple concussions yourself?
I do the baseline test and the stuff that they offer, just to kind of make sure to see where I might be if you're slipping or whatever. But memory is one thing, cognitive ability is another thing, and just organization and things of that nature. That's it's just one of them things, and that's why I try to hire good people to be around me and make sure that we're making calculated moves and the right decisions. But I do suffer from some symptoms, and but honestly, I think that business is my therapy, and as long as I'm working, keeps me finding solutions, keeps me thinking, keeps me on my toes, and I don't sit idle. And I think John can tell you in this business, you can't sit idle at all, especially in dealing with retail. So I stay busy, and I think I owe a lot of my good right now to being in business.
Yeah, business is keeping you sharp, and you said you surround yourself with a lot of good people. I want to tie that back to one of the first things you said, where you said coaches challenge you, and you were talking about football at the time. When
Mhm.
you think about surrounding yourself with really good people now as an entrepreneur, do you have coaches who challenge you as a business leader?
Like this within the business.
Within the business or outside of the business? Who coaches you? And you don't need to name names unless you care to.
Oh,
But who
oh
coaches
yeah.
you these days? Who challenges you these days? Who's the coach that helps bring out the best Jamal possible and raises things to the next level so you feel like you have to grow and get better? Who's that person today? And what have you been learning from them lately?
I have about 2 to 3 people I would say that I pretty much, rely on and that kind of hold me accountable, so to speak, and that I listen to. And one would be my partner, Rob Cuton, who's my business partner. He's a little younger than I am, but at the same time, very good business mind, very smart guy, and just like a teammate, or a coach that'll ask you the tough questions, right? Why, what, where, what was your thinking or whatever, and challenge you. And that's what you need. Another one would be Tiffany Burns. She just made senior partner at McKinsey. I meet with her probably a couple times a year, and she does the same thing as far as making sure that I dotted my I's and crossed my T's, and that I'm going into certain meetings and certain situations, especially with Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. Just making sure that you're prepared and you're ready to go. And also, I noticed Richard Cox is another one. He's at Cox Communications here. He was actually one of my coaches in uh, in high school. Now he's the CIO at Cox Communications now, and I'll meet with him, every now and then, and just kind of meet with him just about things and pretty much the same thing with Tiffany. Pick his brain just about certain things, just to make sure that I'm on top of my game and that I'm prepared for any meeting or any situation or any issue that might come up within business or family or whatever that might be. Those are probably three people that I consider coaches. And I still call Coach Cox. I still call him Coach, even though he's a CIO. And I had to tell him, like, look, man, I don't call everybody Coach, and if I do call you Coach, that's a that's a good thing. So
It's a
that's
high honor.
that's right.
Yeah, and Jamal, that's amazing to hear, right? And you talk, about the stereotype that you're trying to overcome when you're doing these entrepreneurial moves. But when you talked with Rich a few moments ago about an A player and a great player, and the way I've gotten to know you, it matches really, really close. And the fact that you have coaches and people that you're working with doesn't surprise me at all. So I really love to hear that, and have enjoyed working with you and getting to see how you operate as well, just even in our conversations and always being present and such. When we spoke at dinner about a month ago in Atlanta, we were talking about just sports and business in general. And I know as an employer myself that, if you get a resume that you have an athlete that played college something, swimming, field hockey, lacrosse, doesn't matter. You always put a little asterisk, okay, this person played at a high level. They know what it takes to be on time for the meetings, to your point, and to be listening and getting feedback and being coached and so on and so forth. So I've always liked the approach of hiring athletes in my business.
Mhm.
But I think one area that you have interest in is really the sports and entrepreneurism. And we talked a lot about athletes today, and maybe the impact that you could have through your story on why athletes, when they're coming up, or maybe even starting their professional career, should look at entrepreneurism as an opportunity for them as well. Talk to me about that. Why is that a passion for you to talk about sports and entrepreneurism?
Really, because it's a lot of athletes out here that finish up the game and finish up whatever sport that they're playing, and they're lost, and they don't have a transition process. And one of those reasons is because they don't know how to implement structure. As a athlete, I just know as a football player, every team I've been on, we showed up in July, August. You had a whole you had a schedule that was all the way out to the end of the season. So we didn't have to plan. You didn't have to. You just had to go where the herd went. You just had to be on time, for that first meeting, and then everything else flows through. But when you retire and you're done with the game, you need to be able to implement that structure. You need to be able to plan and put things together, and because you can, it's just you never had to. But if you go back to some of the meetings that you've been in, some of the speakers that you've sat in on, the coaches that have spoken to you and corrected you, like you're already prepared for this. You're built for this. It's just applying it. And I think that a lot of athletes will figure out that, if you find a business that you really like, you find an industry that you're really interested in, whatever that business is, if you like it, you can go in and you can be successful, just by the processes and the things that you can bring from a structure standpoint, just using the game, of whatever sport it might be. So that's why I'm more passionate about it, because you start to see a lot of athletes, especially in my space, in the football space, that hey, look, they don't have anything to do but try to chase benefits from the NFL or whatever league it is. Instead of chasing those benefits and chasing that free money, build a business. Use some of the things that that's been instilled in you, and that you've been taught. Use that. We've had a great education. Not just in the classroom, but outside the classroom too. In some life lessons that I think are very valuable. and that these athletes can bring to the table. And that's why you like to hire, athletes, whether it's high school, it doesn't matter. You have guys that are talking about Pop Warner and they're 50 years old, because they have that drive, they have that passion, and they have what it takes to get it across the finish line. And I think there's a lot of guys out there and girls that have that, and that's why I'm more passionate about helping and trying to see athletes move forward through that transition.
Yeah, and I think there's also a big difference, Jamal, between professional athletes investing in businesses and professional athletes being entrepreneurs. Two different
Right.
things, right? Because I'm sure
Oh yeah.
they're approached all the time. Hey, I just saw you sign this contract. Why don't you invest in my widget making factory or whatever it may be, right? I mean,
Right.
I'm sure those come just hot and heavy all over the place versus the reality of, hey, I'm passionate about this industry. I'm going to go jump in this industry and learn it and manage it and build a company in it, just like you've done with my hands, right? I'm going to go actually learn everything I need to know about this industry and this business. What is the catalyst? When somebody, I just want to come back to one point you made. When your career ends, there's this empty syndrome. Even when I finished my hockey playing career in college, it was kind of like, where are the boys? I don't have the locker room anymore, right? So it's just a different feeling. How should professional athletes prepare to be an entrepreneur when they're just so busy training and going through their schedules and managing their professional career and probably starting a family, and they have all these different things going on? What programs are available, or what should they go about doing to prepare themselves for post sports career?
Well, I know the NFL, they have some like boot camps or some programs that they've done with Harvard and some of the top, elite schools out there that offer, a more focused area of whatever that might be, whether it's franchising, whether it's marketing, business, just business period, and being an entrepreneur. They have those, but because of COVID, of course, they kind of shut them down. But I think they are gradually coming back. But at the same time, okay, you're playing for the Baltimore Ravens, so to speak, right? There's a list of sponsors that these guys go out to buy sponsorships for these teams, right?
Hmm.
Okay, it's as simple as reaching out to the organization and saying, hey, send me a list of those sponsors, or can you connect me with these 4 or 5 companies because they're dealing with the top of these companies. So can you connect me with these guys? I want to do an internship, or I just want to sit down and have a meeting or a conversation. I did that when I was there. And when I was starting my trucking company, I went to McCormick. I went to Snapple. I went to a lot of these companies and I got the list from them and basically reached out and said, hey, I want to just come have a conversation. So a lot of that can help, move things forward. But it's on you and what do you want to accomplish? Because football or the game is not going to last long. I played for 10 years and it went by in a blur. So that's 10 years. So therefore, taking that time to go and invest that time to meet with certain people and do that, it's beneficial. It's beneficial. So use that. There's programs out here and stuff, whatever. But I think that if you're a current player and you're part of a multi-billion-dollar organization, you have a better end at some of these people that are buying these suites and that are having their names all over the stadiums and everything else. You have a better shot with building that relationship. So therefore, you know what? You are busy. You don't have time to start a business and focus on a business like I did in 2005 or even before that when I was younger, because I think that was the key to the failure on that side too, because I wasn't there. But at the same time, you can still in the off season build these relationships so that when you are done, hey, you can gradually transition over into something that you've already been dabbling in for the last 3 to 5 years, and now it's a more comfortable situation.
Love that.
Earlier, you had mentioned sacrificing things you want to accomplish goals. And I imagine many of us can think of sacrifices. It's sacrificing many of the things you get short term pleasure on, right? And then in order to get long term pleasure of accomplishing goals. So I understand what that means, sacrificing things you want to accomplish, your long term goals. At what point is it okay to do the things you want? At what point can you stop sacrificing and get the pleasure and enjoy? And you go, yes, goals are important, but I'm not going to be complacent. But at some level, I've arrived at a place where I don't have to constantly be thinking about sacrificing and feeling guilty if I take
Mhm.
time for short term pleasure. Does that place exist? And if it does, where does that exist?
I think it exists when you figure out, hey, look, this is important to me, right? If 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 in the off season, um, going to Italy with the family is important to you for 2 weeks, then do it. But from my standpoint, those 2 weeks, I'm gonna spend those 2 weeks training and getting better. And when because I know that the game is short, so I can take that trip to Italy when the game is over and when I'm done, because it's not going to be 20 years from now. It's going to be, who knows, a few years from now. So I'm going to do everything I can to sacrifice what I want most to accomplish these things right here, to accomplish my goal and where I want to be in having a illustrious, a great 10-year career. But I think that you have to reward yourself, right? So look at it that way. If you accomplish something, I can remember as a rookie, probably shouldn't have did it because it kind of increased my taste a little bit in cars. But I remember when I said going to the Super Bowl, if I went to the Super Bowl, I was going to buy a Ferrari, Ferrari 360 Modena. And you know what? We went and I bought it. you know, I bought it. But did I need it? Not really. But guess what? I set out and said, this is what I want to do. And if I did it, this is what I would get. And that's what I did. But I think it's one of those things where the whole thing that I'm saying about sacrifice is, when you really want something, you can tell how bad you want it by what you sacrifice, right? So that's pretty much where I'm coming from. But after you attain that goal, after you reach that milestone or that mark where you want to be, when you set those goals, when you put those goals down and you write that down, put down certain milestones. You know, if you hit this milestone, hey, look, I'm taking the family on a trip. We deserve that. If I hit this milestone, hey, I might buy that car or whatever, or I might buy this new house or whatever if I hit this milestone or whatever. But it's at least it's planned out and it's giving you that incentive, to do better and keep pushing. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, thanks for it. Totally connected the dots. And I think you gave a great example of it in setting milestones along the way. So you're not doing impulse things that seek pleasure. You're setting milestone goals for things that will create pleasure, almost to create more leverage on yourself to attain that milestone in the pursuit of a long term goal. That makes a ton of
Right.
sense. I got to ask what kind of car you drive now.
Oh, I drive a 2500 HD pickup truck, and it's
Not the
hey, look,
Ferrari?
no, buddy, no. I figured that out. I figured that out. That's not important. This
Well,
my truck. Hey, look, my truck. I love it. I love my truck, and it's one of the best cars I've ever owned.
last question I got for you. In the example about long-term goals, you had said, traveling overseas, going to Italy. Um, I'm curious, what are your long-term goals now? What is your Italy today that you're striving for, that you have milestones towards? Like, what gets you excited and out of bed about what long-term goals you got these days?
I think just hitting the marks on where I planned out and the goals I set for my business and attaining more customers, attaining more business, where, what numbers did we hit or whatever. Mainly, I have a 10-year plan. And hopefully when I'm 50, I can actually do something different or uh, take that trip and relax a little. But for right now, I'm mashing the gas. Leaving. I don't have anything to do, but take my kids and Uber them where they need to go. But outside of that, it's just mashing the gas, driving my business, um, as high as it can go, and just really just trying to hit that mark. I've always just really wanted a scalable business that I could take to the next level and possibly sell or acquire more and just keep growing. So we'll see where that goes. But what makes me happy is a good sale and closing on a good customer. That's my win right now.
Good stuff. Thank you so much for the conversation today. And there's clearly this crossover between football and the talent required there and the talent that you're exercising and the success you're experiencing in business. So we're so happy to have had you. Thank you.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on anytime.
Please stick around for a few more minutes while Rich and I break down this episode.
So, Rich, college football national champion, Super Bowl champion. I have to believe that soon he's going to be a champion in business as well. I just love the way that he approached business while he was still playing. I have to believe that less than 3% of professional athletes start becoming entrepreneurs themselves while they're still playing in preparation for post-sports life. And, like I said, getting to know Jamal last decade or so, just always present, always available, always on time, like he talked about. All the traits he talked about, I've seen in him. And when him and I started talking about sports and business and other things that were going on, I just thought it would be a natural fit to bring on and have a conversation with us.
How did you originally get introduced to him?
Jamal Lewis and I were introduced by a former manager that worked for me. And he introduced us. We had a good conversation and then just stayed in touch, did a few business things together, had a couple projects in football that I was working on. I brought him on to consult with me on, and then I've consulted with him on his company. And so, just a pretty interesting linkage. I was down in Atlanta recently for some meetings and went to meet for lunch or dinner, I should say, and got together again and talked. And he asked me what I was up to. I shared our podcast idea and said, "You got to come on and be a guest."
Yeah, what a great guest he was too. And I can see, for him to rattle off these things on time, taking notes, listening, low number of mental errors, being coachable, appropriate off the field. And then when I asked him about what about entrepreneurs, what's a missing link there that might be exclusive to entrepreneurs, he started with take chances, but then he drew it back and I took chances as a great player myself. And that's a differentiator between an A player and a great player, is taking chances and being decisive about it. So when you say you can see him being a champion in business, I mean, he's already a multi-business owner. Sounds like at 21 years old, he was already doing properties, at 14 properties there. And with the characteristics that he has himself, no doubt he'll continue to rise to success in his businesses.
Yeah, I love that differentiation he made between, there's a lot of A players. You need to have a lot of A players. I mean, think about it. In professional sports, they're almost all A players. But what differentiates the A player from the great player? And I love this example of Deion Sanders. Like, if you're a typical wide receiver, A player in football, you run the route you're told to run. But if you're Deion Sanders, you may take that extra way, not follow the route, but you're still going to get that touchdown. No one's going to yell at you, right? Because you're that level of player. So I think the same thing goes in business. But, when he talked about taking chances and risks as an entrepreneur and making decisions, that's a big difference, right? Because business owners make decisions all the time, all day long. Think about being the head coach or the general manager of a professional sports team and all the decisions they have to make day in and day out. Some are good, some are bad, but they got to make decisions. That's really, maybe more similar to the comparison I was making to. This is the one difference between an athlete and an entrepreneur. The entrepreneur has to make those decisions at a very high level, at a very quick pace, more and more often. But what I thought was also interesting, if you come back to it, is what differentiates the winning teams and the non-winning teams. And it was really that unselfish characteristic that the team had as a whole. I love the question you asked them, right? Which is, how do you balance between individual goals and your collective team goals? And I think in both instances where he won a college football championship and a Super Bowl, I should say, in both of those instances, the characteristic was very unselfish teams. And that seems to be common thread over and over and over again, is individual versus team.
One, that no doubt, predictably, you and I would be thinking about, that's also a very common characteristic of winning business teams.
Yep.
Is that they're in it for the team. Pat Lencioni, who wrote the book The Advantage and talks about organizational health, says a team is a small group of people who take collective responsibility for a common goal. And so on a team in business, it is, you don't play a particular spot. You got to do what it takes to hit the goals. And sure, everybody has their own expertise. Everybody has their own particular talent. But if somebody is struggling or we need you to fill a role, there is no, well, that's not my job. And we got some of that from Jamal today. He also talked about buy into the process and do your part. And a lot of people are trying to do somebody else's part. That when the coach calls you to do your part, you do your part. But the differentiator between being an A player and a great player is almost like being a leader in a business versus leading the business. Mm-hmm. You actually have to create the process so that everybody, and that's creating the vision. Yep. So that everybody can ultimately buy in and do their part to accomplish the vision of the leader. So again, it wasn't surprising to me, but it was, I enjoyed the looking at football and all the commonalities it had over to being a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah. The story that I love too, Rich, that gave, really good introspection on his part, which was, hey, here was a point in time where I was worried about me and me only, because I wasn't getting paid what I thought I was going to be paid. And by worrying about me and me only, sure enough, I go out and get hurt. And now I'm trying to work my way back into the lineup, right? Because now I'm hurt. And when you ask the different question about, okay, team members now in your company, and how do you deal with that contractual and payment thing? And certainly through his learning, it's like, look, I want to hire people right. I want to pay them right off the bat and set proper expectations of what I expect from them for this dollar. And I love the way that approach, because he lived it himself on the opposite side. Just think about an employee in your business who doesn't feel they're getting paid what they're worth. And how are they performing today or tomorrow? Probably not 100% of their capabilities, right? They probably have this in the back of their head that Jim is getting paid more than me, or I'm getting underpaid for the work I'm doing. That type of entropy in your business is garbage, and it doesn't help you at all. But how you hire people on the forefront, not only telling them what you expect for the compensation they're getting, but making sure it's the proper compensation for them. And then maybe also showing them the pathway. I think this is the last part I think is missed a lot. Showing them the pathway, Rich, on how they can grow their compensation within your organization in advance of them coming to work for you. So that it's not just I don't know when I'm going to get a raise. I guess I got to go ask for one. I don't know how I'm going to get promoted from this level to this level. I guess I got to go ask for a promotion. Having a very clear set of expectations and rules that guide your compensation process would lead to avoiding those situations where the employee, or in his case, the football player going in the field, is disgruntled on how they're getting paid.